It's 3 a.m. and we're in the ER. The clock on the wall says 3:17, but for us, time has just stopped. An hour ago, my son was sleeping soundly in his bed. Now we're here, surrounded by the quiet hum of machines and that unmistakable antiseptic smell. His fever shot up so high, so fast, it turned the night into one of the scariest of our lives. You're never really prepared for this. No one tells you how to deal with that paralyzing fear that grips you when your kid is sick and you have no idea why. So, this is what happened. The crazy thing is, the night started so normal. That's the word that keeps bouncing around in my head. It was just a Tuesday. We had dinner, chicken nuggets, and whatever veggies I could negotiate him into eating. We read his favorite book, the one about the friendly dinosaur who finds his way home. I can still see him, all tucked into his rocket ship bed sheets, breathing soft and steady. I remember smoothing his hair back, whispering goodnight, and leaving the door cracked just enough to let the hallway light chase away any monsters. The house settled into its usual rhythm. The dishwasher hummed, the dog curled up on our bed, and my wife and I were trying to finish a show we'd been working on for weeks. There wasn't a single sign, no warning at all that our little world was about to be flipped upside down. It was just a calm, predictable evening, the kind you totally take for granted until it's gone. Looking back now, that peace feels almost cruel. It was one of those perfect, fragile little family evenings, and we had no idea it was about to be completely shattered. I'm not even sure what woke me. It wasn't a loud noise, more like a feeling, a shift in the house's quiet. I just laid there for a second, listening, and knew something was off. Then I heard it, a soft whimper from my son's room. It wasn't his usual "I need water" cry or a bad dream. This was different. I walked down the hall, the wood floors cold under my feet. The second I touched his forehead, a jolt of adrenaline just shot right through me. He was burning up. Not just warm, he was radiating a heat that felt unnatural, that felt wrong. It was the kind of fever you read about, the kind that sets off a primal alarm bell in your head. I fumbled in the dark for the thermometer. Every second felt like an hour. The little digital screen lit up and I waited for the beep. When it finally came, my stomach just dropped. The numbers glared back at me. 104.5. It was like a punch to the gut. 104. Your brain just freezes for a second when you see a number like that. His face was flushed, his breathing was shallow, and his eyes were glassy and confused. He whimpered again, that small, tired sound. "Dad, I don't feel good." That simple sentence in his little voice snapped me out of my shock, and a cold, sharp fear took over. For a minute, my mind was racing. Is this a bad flu? Did he get something from daycare? Do I give him medicine and wait it out? I really wanted to believe it was something simple, something that a dose of cherry-flavored syrup and a cool washcloth could fix. But then the what-ifs started pouring in. What if it gets worse? What if we wait and that's the wrong call? A fever that high, that fast, it just felt like more than a common bug. It felt like his body was screaming for help. I woke my wife, trying to keep my voice steady, but the look on her face had her out of bed in an instant. We stood over his bed, looking at each other with the exact same fear in our eyes. This wasn't the time for guessing. I remembered something my own dad told me once. When it comes to your kids, you'll never regret being too cautious. And just like that, the debate was over. We had to go. We had to be on the safe side. The thought of something happening because we waited was just unbearable. We had one goal: get him to a doctor. Now. Getting to the car was a total blur. My wife grabbed the diaper bag, and I wrapped our little body in his favorite blanket. His little body felt limp in my arms. He was just so tired and floppy, almost like we couldn't quite wake him up. The drive to the hospital was the longest 10 minutes of my life. The streets were empty, bathed in that eerie orange glow from the streetlights. We were a tiny bubble of panic moving through a sleeping city. Every red light felt like an insult. I was gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white, my eyes darting between the road and the rearview mirror. My wife was in the back with him, his head resting on her shoulder. I tried to tell him it would be okay, that doctors would make him feel better, but my voice was tight with worry. All I could think about was 104.5 and what it could mean. You feel so completely helpless in those moments. You do anything, trade places with them in a second, but all you can do is drive and pray you're heading towards help. Pulling into the bright, sterile emergency room entrance, I felt a weird mix of dread and relief. We made it. Now, the real waiting began. The ER at 3 a.m. is its own separate world. It's blindingly bright after the darkness outside, and it has that clean chemical smell that I'll now forever connect to that night. We walked through the automatic doors into a room that was strangely quiet, but buzzing with tension. A calm, professional-looking nurse pointed us to check in. And then came the most surreal part, the paperwork. In the middle of our own personal crisis, we're filling out forms and answering questions about deductibles. I fumbled for my wallet, my hand still shaking a little as I handed over our insurance card. It's this weirdly calm moment of bureaucracy right in the middle of sheer panic. Name, date of birth, all these details felt so pointless compared to the heat I could still feel coming from my son. Then we sat in the waiting area. Luckily, it was mostly empty. We sank into these uncomfortable plastic chairs under the fluorescent lights. And then my son, who'd been so out of it, suddenly perked up. "Dad, I feel better now," he said with a little flash of his old self. For a split second, my heart soared. Maybe we overreacted? But just as quickly, his head slumped back onto my shoulder. The energy was gone. It was this brutal little glimmer of hope, a reminder of how fast things can swing in either direction. So we just sat, lost in our worry, waiting for them to call his name. Finally, a nurse called his name. We were led through a set of double doors into the heart of the ED and put into a small curtained-off cubicle. The space was mostly taken up by a bed covered in crisp paper with all these monitors on the wall. It was incredibly intimidating. A kind nurse came in and started her assessment. She took his temperature, checked his heart rate with a little clip on his finger, and spoke in a calm, reassuring voice the whole time. Then came the part I was dreading. They needed to put in an IV. He cried, this heartbreaking sound of pure fear and pain, and all I could do was hold him tight and whisper how brave he was. My own heart just ached with every tear. The doctor came in a bit later. He was young, but he had this quiet confidence that helped. He listened to our son's chest, checked his ears and throat, and asked us a million questions. And then, more waiting for test results. Every minute felt like an hour. In the quiet of that little room, with just the beep of the heart monitor, your mind goes to the darkest possible places. You're trying to be strong for your kid, but inside you're just crumbling. You look at your child so small in that big hospital bed, and you feel a powerlessness that is just crushing. After what felt like an eternity, the doctor came back. The sun was just starting to rise, casting a soft gray light into the hallway. He pulled back the curtain and gave us a small, tired smile. The tests were back. It wasn't anything awful or sinister. It was a severe viral infection. The word virus sounded so beautiful. The relief that washed over me was so intense, it was physical. It's like I had been holding my breath for hours and could finally let it out. The doctor explained that our son's body was just fighting off the infection really aggressively, which is why the fever was so high. They'd already started medicine through the IV to bring it down and get him hydrated. As the medicine worked, the change was incredible. The color came back to his cheeks. He woke up, really woke up, looked at me and asked for some juice. A few minutes later, he whispered, "Dad, I feel better now." And this time, it was real. The exhaustion was still there, but the pain and confusion in his eyes were gone. He was back. The nurse came back to take out the IV, and when she put a little cartoon bandage on his arm, it felt like a badge of honor. We were discharged just as the morning was getting busy. Walking out of that hospital into the bright sunlight felt like coming out of a long, dark tunnel. My son was okay. We were taking him home. Looking back, I can still feel the fear from that night. It's a memory that's burned into my brain. But right alongside the fear, there's this overwhelming feeling of gratitude. Gratitude to the doctors and nurses who were so calm and skilled, who treated our fear along with our son. And gratitude for that little voice in my head, that parental gut instinct that told me something was seriously wrong. It's a night I'll never forget. It was a huge reminder of how fragile life is and how fast it can all change. And it proved that as a parent, sometimes the most important thing you can do is trust your gut and be your child's advocate. If you've ever been through a night like this, if you know that heart-stopping feeling, I'd genuinely love to hear from you. Please share your stories in the comments. I think we can all draw a little strength from knowing we're not alone in this. And if you'd like to follow our family's journey, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for listening.